in dividends. The price must be reflective of the UPC company. If stockholders are getting large returns over 25% per year and the initial risk of a new company is not present anymore, if the price is too cheap, we can be in violation of the Anti-Fraud Act. What the government said was this was proof that the company knew it was doing something wrong.
No, it's not proof. This is proof that we were trying to do something right.
Right, and so that's the problem of email.
This is unbelievable.
This is what, I'm telling you, this is what the government said. I'm just telling you what they said.
It says here,
Yeah.
we can be in violation, so let's not be too cheap.
Yeah, but see what happened was, they looked at that. See, look at those numbers. And they looked at that, and they said, see, even you knew that. That's what they said.
Okay, the least there be any question, we talked about getting valuations for prices. We get valuations every year. We sold stock, what the valuation was at. And in addition, investors could buy and sell between themselves for whatever was the agreed upon price, which turned out to be exactly what we were selling it for.
So, that's what the government said. You know, I probably should have left, I can skip and come back. Why don't I do that? We'll do it out of order, okay? Is that going to mess you up for later if I go out of order?
No.
Okay. Let's go ahead, we'll come back. All right? What to do about email? Okay? Email is convenient, right? Off you go. I love email. The problem is there's no inflection, there's no context, there's no control over what you receive. Right? Just what you said, right? What do you do about email? Read before you send. Read it over and think about how somebody else could interpret it. When I was just out of law school and a clerk for a judge, we had a protective order that said that certain things couldn't be released to the public, that somebody had, and they were complaining. One side was complaining, look, this is protective order. You can't release these documents. It's a protective order. And we read it. And the problem with the protective order was, if you picked it up at 10 o'clock in the morning, you read it one way, yep, they were right. And you picked it up at 11 o'clock, you could see the other side. And what I learned from that is if something is capable of two interpretations, it's always going to be interpreted the way you don't want. So, read every email. Be sure it's not capable of being interpreted in a way you do not want. Be careful. Read it over. Check it over. So that what you want to convey is what you're conveying in email. People are very fast and loose with email. They write things in email they would never write in a letter. They're careful about letters. They're not careful in email. It's like conversation. Be careful. Okay? Things can be taken multiple ways. Be careful. Next thing is, be careful with reply all. We had such a problem, you might want to do this, we had such a problem in our law firm with people hitting reply all that they made it difficult to do reply all. You have to do another step. You can hit reply like the normal way, but to do reply all, you need another step. So you couldn't blast it to the world, whoever on the email. Because people don't realize what they're doing. It just took a couple emails where you just said something to 900 lawyers in the firm, and what I said, that you don't do that. So you might want to consider, I don't know if you can do that, but you might want to consider it. Be careful with reply all. If you have a legal question, put in the subject line, attorney-client privilege. Okay? It's not that you couldn't be otherwise, but it's a lot better, it's easier if you do that. Now, if you get an improper email, don't just forget it. Because as you can see, they just lay around. And as Dr. Nara says, you have no control of what people send to you, but you do have control. You don't have control of what they send, you have control over how you respond. If it sits there unresponded to, it looks like at least you might have agreed with it. Forward it to Julie. She will call us likely, and we will craft an answer. It's already happened.
Right.
You get somebody who writes to you and wants to know, Dr. So-and-so wants to know about something about it. Please, it has to know by tonight. Please tell me. And the response is, doctors, we can't give that information. We don't give that information to doctors. Please tell Dr. So-and-so we can't do that. We do this many times for clients. We get emails from hospital administrators that make my hair stand up on end. I mean, it's just unbelievable. They look like they're asking for a kickback. And we respond, we don't do that. And sometimes when that happens, you have to walk away. We send the responses, we don't do that, and you say, we can't contract with you. And sometimes you can fix it in an email. It depends on what's going on. It's very important not to let those emails just sit out there. You got to respond. Right? You don't respond on your own because you might create the wrong impression. It's the same problem. You got to really be careful at how you respond, but don't leave the emails out there. All right, let's go back. Back to start. Okay? As I said before, I'm going to say it a million times. You must have a written agreement that's signed by the parties. Oh, also, when you fill in the agreement, to have a binding the government's probably not going to care about this, but I care about this because someday you may care about this. Be sure that you've got the legal name of whoever you're contracting with. You know, Winston Hospital may really be, you know, Strawn Memorial Hospital LLC. You know, trading as Winston Hospital. You know, they don't. It's usually a problem with ASCs, and it's often a problem with hospitals. Make sure they've given you the real legal name, because if you if you have to go to court on that contract or try to sue on that contract, if you don't have the right party, you might not have, they'll say, the lawyer is going to say, wait a minute, you don't have a contract with us. So apart from any legal, you know, regulatory compliance issues, make sure you're contracting with a real entity. If it doesn't say something at the end like Inc., LTD, LLC, LLP, something like that, it's not. You know, it's not a legal entity. It's a trade name, and be sure you got the right one. Don't assume that you have the right name. Ask. You know, what's your legal name? It's not terrible to ask. You got to have it signed again. It has to be signed by the parties. Do not, if it's not signed, call them back. They need it more than, and they actually need it more than you do. The agreement has to specify what's being provided. Right? Compensation has to be paid as in the agreement, or you got a problem. You can't have an anti-kickback violation. You can't have a billing problem. So if it's billed in violation, if there's billing on the contract billed in violation, if somehow you upcode or you give the wrong code by mistake, you can have a violation. You got to bill correctly. Okay. What if you don't get a contract? You know, you go through negotiation, you don't get the contract. Okay. You can go somewhere else. It's a free country. Hospital A doesn't want you, go to Hospital B. It's fine. Go to the local ASC, whatever you like, that's fine. And the patient and the doctors can, as we said before, the doctors can take their patients where they want. They can, if you tell them, we couldn't get a contract with Hospital A, but we got one with B, we hope you'll be interested in B, and maybe they'll come. As you said, no violation as long as nothing is said to the hospital moving patients. Not United, not the physicians. Okay. I know it's hard. Might want to send out 340 muzzles or whatever. Okay. Right. What if you don't get the contract? Hospital A terminates and United begins servicing Hospital B. Physicians decide to provide services at Hospital B. Hospital A decides it made a big mistake and wants to enter into a contract. Don't do it. Why not? Somebody got an idea? What's the problem of going back? You went to B, Hospital B, A finds out that all the literacy cases are gone. What's the problem if they call you up and say, we want you back?
Looks like an end run.
It looks like they're paying for the referrals. It looks like they're only giving you the contract because they lost the business. It's a problem.
What about that you're fearful that your competitor will contract with them instead?
What are you going to do? Now, you know, it may happen. But the problem is if you come back, you know, we can talk about it and see what happens, you know, but usually what we say is don't go. Because it looks like they're buying you back. They wouldn't contract you before. Usually it comes up on price. It's almost always price, you know. They want you want, you know, X dollars and they want X minus Y, you know. And you say, sorry, we can't provide the service that's not economical. And then all of a sudden when the cases leave, they say, maybe it was economical after all, you know. They want you back. It looks like they're paying for the referrals. And that's the problem. It's painful, but the problem is, it takes a lot of lost contracts to get to $7.3 million. reality. What can I
At
say?
what point can you go back to hospital A?
I don't know. We have to think about it, certainly not then. We have to think about it. At some point you probably can, but not right away.
Wait, what if Hospital A contracted with somebody else and they were just not happy with their service?
Well,
What's wrong? Just say, well, you know what, we made a mistake.
Here we are. Look at that. Brilliant minds think alike. Okay. So Hospital A terminates and Unite begins servicing Hospital B. Right? Physicians decide to provide service at Hospital B. Hospital A still has some doctors doing litho. And it finds a new service provider promised more than it can deliver. Okay? The contributor isn't very good, the tech isn't either.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect. Hey, it's perfect.
Okay? See, I told you, brilliant minds think
I
alike.
think it's perfect for paying off your mortgage. I think it's great.
See? Okay? So they terminate the new provider, and they say they want United back.
Call a lawyer.
It's tricky calls, because it's very tricky. It depends on the facts. I will tell you, we've had 2 calls about this recently.
What if they're not satisfied with the current vendor and it's a new opportunity for us?
Well, that's different.
Okay.
You've never been there. You're going to go and you're going to go do a contract.
Right.
And
But-
let me
but
tell you
the-
something.
But the physician has asked for it.
That's okay,
Okay.
as long as they ask. I mean,
It's
you
all
can
United.
go and you can. There is not only nothing wrong with, but there's everything right with you marketing your service based on the quality of your service. For you to say yes, those other guys will come at. I mean, I've heard this, for example. Those other guys, not to be named, okay, will charge you less. But they don't. We have heard that they. I mean, you got to tell the truth. I've just only heard these stories, so I don't know if they're true or not. We've heard that if they find out that there's only one case, they won't show up. Or, yes, it's true that they charge X per case, but they have a minimum. So if you don't show up, so if you don't get enough cases, you won't hit the minimum. You're going to be paying for more than you need. They won't come for a special. They won't come for one case. They won't. We have better techs. I mean, you market on the quality of your service.
I guess what hung me up there was that it was the call was based on a physician's request for them to call.
If he's saying,
long as
if
it's
this
from a
is saying
quality
call
perspective.
because we like the service, if
Right.
it's based on, if it's truly based on quality of service,
Yeah.
don't get the physician involved in the contract.
Right.
But if somebody doctor calls you and says, Hospital B doesn't have, I don't like their provider. I know they've had problems. Why don't you go talk to them? As long as you're only doing it, you're not involving in the negotiations. You just, you go there and you market yourself on service. We have better quality control. We got better techs. We have a better outcome rate. We aren't missing half the stones. Whatever it is, our techs go through such and such training. How much training do the other people's techs have? I mean, what you have better than I do, and you market the quality of the service. And that's what they should. And then they have to make a decision as to whether or not the quality is somebody they want to keep, somebody who's... Now, I will tell you the problem that we have is this 800-pound gorilla in the corner of the room. This competitor.
Right.
And the problem is that when you come up against that other competitor, we need to talk.
It's that other
Because-
competitor.
Right. Because I will tell you that you are not the only ones in this boat. We represent several other providers who, Bruce knows them, and everybody who comes up against them has the same problem. And it's very tricky, and we know what happened with you. And so if you want to get a contract from them, we need to figure out how you're going to do this, because it is very tricky, and I will tell you that I am positive, as much as I can ever be positive about everything, that if they find that they're not getting contracts, they're going to complain. And so it's got to be so clean that the government has nothing. And the other problem is you have to decide whether you want to go up against them in some place. I mean, this is the complaint. People say, well, should we just go cower and stay away from them? The other complaint is, do we want to deal with the fact that they may go back to the OAG and go through another investigation, even if it comes out clean? And we had a company years ago that went through a whole investigation. A competitor turned them in. Nothing came of it. They went through 6 months or so of investigation, the whole thing. I think Mark talked about, you can't, or I guess Bruce did, during that time period, you end up not growing. You can't do other things. What they told mean, the end was, the legal fee, I talked about, the shame of having to spend all the legal fees, and when it was nothing, he said to me, the legal fees were nothing compared to the lost opportunities. So, really it comes down to it. Sometimes when you look at each circumstance, you got to decide, is it worth it? It's terrible. I mean, it really is a huge problem because of the way they do certain things. But
So-
it's reality.
Anytime I get a call from someone that's using that other competitor, we need to
You
talk.
say
Love
any
discussion.
competitor.
Vortec.
Because I think that you have to decide, we got to decide whether it's worth it. And what's going to happen, and what the circumstances were. You're sure that no one, I will tell you that we've said to other clients, are you positive the doctors haven't said anything? We make them go back to the doctors to see what they've said. It sounds crazy, but it's really trying to avoid the problem that you got into.
I would say good defense is a great offense. And if any of you have any direct knowledge of them using the wrong fibers, bringing in fibers that don't go with the right machines, screwing around with the electricity, anything like that, let us know, because I would be thrilled to turn them into the OIG.
You had a question?
If we were to have a litho company that was non-doctor owned,
You wouldn't have a problem.
we wouldn't have a problem.
Would not have a problem. You notice, they made us do the contracts for the laser companies, to
Can
go
there
to
be
contracts,
any-
but you don't have a fair market value issue on them. You had a, and the CIA only applies to these few companies. It's the doctor ownership that's the problem, and they don't have doctor.
But can we have both a doctor-owned company
Well,
and
the
a
problem that you have, you can. The problem that you have in the situation, and we have clients that do that. Just because, you have one large litho company, a lot of other companies have smaller companies, and they may have in certain areas, they may just have a non-doctor owned company. But the issue that we would have is whether the government would see that as you're doing something funny. We'd have to look at it. One of the questions that I got when we wanted them to take away the requirement for fair market value on the laser contracts was, they were worried that somehow the investors in the litho company would somehow put pressure on the contracts for the laser company. And what I said to them was, so you get a more than fair market value price. I said to them, there's no doctor ownership in the laser company. So if a hospital wanted to curry favor with the doctors, they wouldn't give a higher price to the company that had no doctor ownership, where the doctors wouldn't get any benefit out of it. And that's why they agreed not to do it. So they worry about some kind of a tie-in, so we'd have to be sure that there was nothing that looked like it could be.
Like a geographic, if,
Maybe, yeah, out somewhere there's no doctor,
Right.
right. Yeah, there's no doctors, and you go off on your own, you do whatever you want to do. So you have to look at it and see how things are and what's going on and how you want to do it. But that's what they're looking for, that there's somehow the non-doctor company will somehow get a benefit from the doctors, especially if they use it. See, if you notice, if you look at the CIA, what they deal with is whether there's any kind of referral from the physician owners. And the physician owners are only owners in UUC. So since the laser companies get referrals from owners in UUC, because they just happen, a lot of them, then that's why it brings those contracts into the whole process. So, that's where we are. But they were willing to agree that you didn't have to, that fair market value would be different. Okay. That was the email I just talked about. I can't emphasize enough about email. I will tell you, I am so careful about email. I read it over and over again before I send it, because I worry about what I'm going to say, and will somebody take it wrong? Just check it over. Like you do a spell check, and you do a grammar check, do a content check. If you're not sure, have someone look at it. I will tell you, there are many times when Tom, my partner, and I send emails, and we have somebody else look at it to be sure it's right. Is this what we really wanted to say? We're a bunch of lawyers, and we do that. Okay, compensation to employees. I was asked about that. There is a safe harbor under the anti-kickback statute for amounts paid to an employee. But the individual has to be a W-2 employee, and it has to be, have to be an employee of the company that's paying the compensation. Otherwise, you don't meet the safe harbor, and then you have to decide whether or not what you're paying is, could be construed as a kickback. It has to do with things like bonuses that are paid to people who get cases. This is not going to apply to people like techs. It has to do with whether or not salespeople can get bonuses based on on contracts, or whether they get it based on how you can tie it in, whether you can tie it into cases. So we really need to scrutinize how that compensation is paid carefully and be sure that that's okay. Well, so I was asked this question, nothing to do with what we were dealing with, but I would answer it. The rules are on off-label use. Doctors, as you probably know, the two doctors here know for sure, that doctors are allowed to do what's called off-label use. They can prescribe medications that were not approved by the FDA for a particular purpose. They can use devices for things that were not approved for a particular purpose. However, nobody can market a medication or a device for off-label use. So you can't send out information saying, you really think you should use the lithotripter to blast gallbladder stones or something like that. You just can't do it. If the doctors want to do it, use it for something, and you feel comfortable letting them use it for something that's not approved, then you can do it. But you can't market it. Whoops. What happened?
You went past the end, past questions.
Okay. Questions? We still have to do another 25 minutes, so we got to talk. So let's get some questions, or I'll have to make stuff up. Yes?
What happens in 5 years after the probation period?
After the CIA is over? What happens at the end of the CIA is it's not quite 5 years. This is what happens. Every year, Julie has to file an annual report with the OIG. And then after the last annual report is filed, the government has, I think, 120 days, is it? Something like that, to come back and ask for more information. Because as you go along, every other year, they can always come back. So they get another 120 days at the end of the CIA. So what happens is, most of the CIA goes away. It says it terminates, but you still have to provide some information. So when it's over, it's over. That doesn't mean you should go back to doing something that you weren't supposed to do, but the reporting requirements end. The number of hours of training ends, and you can decide whether you want to do the same amount of training or different training. You still should be training. I highly recommend it. The tracking system goes away. You may decide you like it, or some of it you may like, and maybe you don't. But all the requirements go away, and life goes on.
Is it possible after like 3 years to, I'm sure the answer is no, you can go to the OIG and say, hey, we've been really great citizens, can we stop the last 2 years?
They won't stop the end, I think. My guess is they will not stop the end. Sometimes, if there's something in there you don't like, you might be able to get them to stop it. I don't know that, this one is pretty limited, so I don't know that they will do it. But sometimes you can do it. The OIG also, a bunch of years ago, under, I guess it was Bush administration, actually changed some of the CIAs on their own because they decided they were too onerous. But I think you're stuck. It's a 5-year commitment, and you're stuck. I think that the more, that if we comply with it scrupulously, send in the reports we're supposed to do, we have a good relationship with the person we're dealing with, and hopefully it's a nice person, life goes smoothly. If not, it can be a very long 5 years. So.
When is the end? When did it start?
It was signed July 8th. So July 8th of 2010, so it goes to July 8th of what, 2005? To 15. 15.
So we have 90 days.
Huh?
We have 90 days to ramp up our.
We have 90 days to complete all of the requirements, and then it's 120 days from not another 120, but 120 days from July 8th to file the first implementation report. So all the training has to be done, all of the all the policies that we haven't finished them. The tracking system has to be in place. We should get it all in place soon so we can be sure it works. We have to have the IRO engaged. We're working on that.
And part of that plan, will that mean that we need to amend the contracts that are?
I believe that I have to check check the CIA. Don't remember if we have to amend them to add the certification or if it only comes up on renewal. I just don't remember. One would think I would know because I thought I knew that thing like the back of my hand. It's not the best written thing, but do you remember? I don't remember.
I thought it was renewal.
I thought it
I
was
think it's renewal,
too.
but I don't want to be quoted on it.
Plus, we have to send a letter out to all of our physicians and
Yes.
tell them where they can find the compliance
Yeah,
material.
all the compliance material is going to have to be on the intranet site. It was supposed to be, what they originally wanted was on your website, and we got them to agree that you could have an intranet site, so it didn't have to be for the world. You know, there's some things you just don't want out for everybody. We may want to, I don't know, but at least it gave you the option. So there's going to have to be an intranet site where everybody can find all the policies and procedures and the code of conduct, and the doctors can access, because they're not requiring sending everything to the doctors, they're requiring in the letter that they have that they'll be told they have access. And the letter will be, the trick on crafting the letter is not making it so long that they don't read it,
Right.
but still comply with what the OIG wants. And that was one of my things with them, is that, you know, they want you to describe so much that, because the big, and I think we'll put in the beginning, the importance of what they can do, because I think that that's the biggest issue, is to keep them out of things. But I do worry that it'll be so long they'll pick it up and say, I don't want to read anything. The other thing we can do is, we do this with our lawyers are sneaky. When we send memos to clients, when they ask us a memo of advice, we put the conclusion in the beginning, because often the dirty secret is that a lot of clients never read them except for the conclusion. So we put the conclusion in the front, at least they'll read the conclusion. So we may just do that. Maybe we'll put a summary in the front of the letter and then do the rest. But
I will tell you, as a doctor, if the letter is more than 2 pages, forget it.
I know that's the problem.
So keep the letter to a page and a half and put the important stuff in there, and then go to our website for any further information.
Well-
Read it. Otherwise, it's a
Well,
waste
I
of
would
time.
love to do that, and I'm on the same page as you are. The problem is that the CIA requires more, and we tried to get it done differently, and they wouldn't do it. So we're stuck. So we got to figure out on Plan D, your doctor, you tell us, what's the likelihood of them reading the most important things, which is stay out of the contracts.
Yeah, put it in the first 2 paragraphs, and the rest they won't read. I can tell you that.
Well, that's what we're afraid of. So I think that's what we're going to do. But that was, we got them to change some of the language a little bit, but you know, they want us to summarize the CIA. Well, how detailed? You know, I think we got them to change some of the adjectives, because you know, I could write 10 pages on summarizing the obligations of the CIA.
Worthless.
Yeah. So, but that's the requirement. You know, we're kind of stuck with the requirement for what it is. And they have, part of the problem is that they have their forms about what has to be done, and they don't want to deviate very much from their forms, and that's a lot of the problem I'm dealing with. There were things in there that I said, this is ridiculous, like the business purpose. The business purpose is to provide literature. And they said, well, just put that. They didn't want to take it out of the form. What can I say? More questions? Come on, folks. You're going to make me come up with some questions. Okay. I'll ask questions for you guys. What do you do if the hospital calls for a case? No schedules here, so you have to be around. The hospital wants to do a case, and there's no contract. Person's in agony, got a stone, wants you to do the case tomorrow morning. Poor guy is dying. Can't you do it just this once? We have a contract that's somewhere else. Go send him there. Okay? Doctor calls and pleads with you.
Wouldn't that be a threat? You know, we have a contract.
No, we can say, you're right. I would just, well, that's not a threat. We don't have a contract, we just go somewhere else. I don't think it's a threat, but yeah, we can't do it. We can't provide the service. What?
I'll make it even more complicated, because if the patient's not Medicare, there's no issue.
Not quite.
Is that the law?
You would think. All right, here's the problem. The Stark Law covers any financial relationship. And the reason that it's there, because after all, lithotripsy is not a designated health service, so why in the world do we need a contract for it, right? The problem with the Stark Law is that they were concerned that if a doctor had some kind of a financial relationship, that the hospital, excuse me, would help the doc out by paying more in the other relationship.